Thunder rolled over the barren training ground, rattling the thin windows of the barracks and making the world feel smaller. Rain had turned the dirt to sucking mud. Soldiers lined up, boots caked, fatigue etched on every face except one. Callie Mason. Her hands trembled, but her jaw was set, eyes locked forward. It was barely dawn, the sky smeared with bruised purples and grays. Instructors stood watchful and silent, arms folded, eyes sharp as bayonets. "All right, Mason. Front and center," barked Sergeant Roth, his voice slicing the air like a whip. He was built like a slab of concrete, and looked at her the way a wolf might look at a limping deer. "Let's see if you can actually hit a damn target today." Callie stepped up to the firing line. The world narrowed to the cold steel in her hands and the target. A simple man-shaped silhouette 50 meters away, paper pale against the mud. It might as well have been a mile. A low snicker came from behind her, someone muttering, maybe if the target had a mirror, she'd finally hit it. She ignored it, grinding her teeth so hard it hurt. "Ready," Roth barked, and Callie snapped her rifle to her shoulder, the rain dripping off her helmet, sweat stinging her eyes despite the chill. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She tried to breathe slow in, slow out, the way the manual said. Don't think. Don't feel. Just shoot. Fire. She squeezed the trigger. The report of the rifle echoed sharp, echoing across the sodden field. Nothing. The silhouette was untouched. The white chalk line on the ground looked like a judge's sentence. Roth let out a theatrical sigh, as if he'd been hoping for a miracle and wasn't even surprised. Of course. "Next," he shouted, but he didn't turn away. He leaned closer, voice pitched just for her. "You're embarrassing yourself, Private. You want to serve in this unit? I'd have better luck handing a rifle to a scarecrow." A ripple of laughter skittered through the ranks. Callie felt heat rush to her cheeks, even as rainwater ran down her collar. She clenched her hands so tight around the rifle her knuckles went bone white. The next trainee, Ramirez, stepped up, cocky as ever, and hit 2 bullseyes with lazy, practiced ease. He didn't even look at Callie, but the smirk on his lips was enough. A hush fell as Roth turned back to her. "Again, Mason, line up. Don't waste my time." She slid another round into the chamber. Her arms felt leaden, but she forced them steady. She could feel dozens of eyes boring into her. Judgment, amusement, impatience, all of it like a physical weight. The rain spattered louder, as if the sky itself wanted to drown her out. "Ready!" She snapped into position, lips pressed to the cold metal of the sight. "Fire!" The shot went wide, slicing empty air. The target didn't so much as flutter. Roth's lip curled in disgust. Jesus! Somebody check if her rifle's loaded with blanks. This time, even Ramirez couldn't hide a laugh. The others joined in, some softly, others loud and cruel. She felt her vision blur, but whether it was rain or tears, she couldn't say. Before she could step back, Roth blocked her path. "You think this is funny? Is this some kind of joke to you, Mason? Because it's not to me. Out here, when you miss, people die. You think any enemy's gonna be moved by those big pretty eyes and lip gloss?" Someone in the line hissed, "Bet she shoots better selfies than rifles." "Enough!" Roth roared, glaring at the ranks, then back at her. His voice dropped to a low growl. "You want to stay? Prove you belong here. 3 shots. If you miss them all, don't bother coming to breakfast tomorrow. You'll be on the first truck home." A hush so deep it hurt. Even the rain seemed to pause. Callie nodded stiffly, forcing her body into motion. She loaded the rifle, each click of metal a drumbeat of shame. She sighted the target. The world fell away. Just her, the rifle, and the impossible distance. "Ready!" She pressed the butt to her shoulder, jaw clenched. "Fire!" Bang. Miss. Her breath caught in her throat. "Fire!" She fired again, desperate, reckless. Miss. Roth's laughter this time was low and dark. "Last chance, Mason. Maybe wish on a star this time." She closed her eyes for a heartbeat. Let the noise fade. Let the sound of her brother's voice echo in her head. "You're tougher than they know. Cal. Show them." Then she looked down the barrel, sighting the target one last time. Fire! The shot rang out sharp and clear. It missed. Just barely, but it missed. The paper fluttered, untouched. Roth shook his head, already turning away. Pathetic. You can't fake this job, Mason. Go home and do something you're actually good at. Maybe there's a pageant looking for you somewhere. The laughter followed her as she stepped away, her legs wooden, her vision swimming. She stared at the mud, at her own boots, willing herself not to cry, not to show even an inch of weakness. But as the others filed past, most ignored her. A few snickered, and one or two threw her a pitying glance. She shouldered her rifle, chin high, jaw set. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Behind her, Roth's voice boomed out again, but she heard none of it. In that moment, all that mattered was that she had missed, again, and the world had watched her fail. The sky had barely brightened when Callie slipped out of her bunk. The barracks were quiet, filled with the soft sounds of sleeping bodies and rain drumming on the roof. She walked with the heavy step of someone hoping not to be noticed, her boots muffled by the worn linoleum. No one stirred as she reached the back door and stepped into the gray, pre-dawn world. The air was heavy, thick with last night's storm. She crossed the training grounds to the firing range, its line of battered targets standing silent and indifferent, ragged holes marking everyone else's aim. She set up alone, methodical, fingers numb as she loaded her rifle. The steel was slick with dew, cold against her cheek. Her mind replayed every jeer, every whispered joke from the day before. She could still hear Roth's voice, sharp and dismissive. Go home and do something you're actually good at. And beneath it all, the bitter laughter of her so-called teammates. She squeezed her eyes shut, jaw tight. The humiliation burned deeper than any wound. She took a shot. Miss. Another. Miss. The targets stared back, blank and unforgiving. She swallowed hard, fighting the well of frustration rising in her chest. She could not fail again. She would not. This was more than pride, it was survival and something older, something deeper. She pictured her brother's face, sunburned and grinning in her memories, his hand resting on her shoulder the day she told him she wanted to join up. You got this, Cal. Prove them wrong. For both of us. The echo of that promise was the only thing that kept her upright. A shout jerked her from her thoughts. She turned to see Ramirez and a few others watching from the edge of the range, steaming mugs in hand. Early riser, beauty queen, Ramirez called. His tone just on the edge of friendly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. If you're trying to break the record for most missed shots, you've got a good lead. The others chuckled, not bothering to hide it. Callie forced herself not to respond. She raised her rifle, tried to block out the sound. The shot went wide, rattling the target stand. Jesus, just give it up, muttered another voice, softer but sharp. You're making us all look bad. She lowered the rifle, hands shaking. A lump sat hard in her throat. She had never felt so exposed, so utterly alone. It wasn't just the training or the jokes. It was the constant, crushing sense that she didn't belong here, in this place where every weakness was a sin. She finished her rounds, collected her brass, and walked back to the barracks as the others filtered in, laughing and loud. As she passed, one of them, Lopez, a woman with sharp eyes, caught her gaze, then looked away quickly. Pity. That was even worse. Callie kept her head down, heading for the showers, hoping to scrub off the cold, the rain, the shame. But even the hot water couldn't chase away the chill inside her. The days blurred together. PT at dawn, drills, endless lectures from Roth, who seemed to make her his personal project. She tried harder, ran faster, worked longer. She shot until her shoulder ached and her ears rang. It never seemed to matter. At meals, the others talked around her, about her. She heard her name like a curse word, always just out of reach. One night, exhausted and bone-sore, she sat alone in the mess, poking at her food. Roth strode in, trailing a cloud of authority and contempt. He stopped at her table, tray in hand. "You still here?" he asked, voice low, eyes hard. Most people would have taken the hint by now. She met his gaze, refusing to shrink. I'm not most people, Sergeant. He snorted. That's painfully obvious. He leaned in, dropping his voice to a whisper. There's no shame in admitting you're in over your head. Go home before you get someone killed. She watched him walk away, anger and shame warring inside her. Her fists clenched so hard her nails bit into her palms. After chow, she found herself back at the range, darkness falling, the world awash of blue and black. The targets loomed, ghostly in the moonlight. She loaded her rifle, breath coming in short bursts. She aimed, fired, missed. A sob threatened to claw its way out, but she bit it back. She would not cry, not here, not where anyone could see. But the tears came anyway, hot and silent, blurring her vision. Pathetic, she whispered to herself. Useless. She heard footsteps crunching behind her. She tensed, swiping at her face, bracing for more mockery. Instead, the old armorer appeared. A wiry, silver-haired man named Brooks, who spent his days fixing rifles and telling stories about wars that felt like myths. Midnight practice, huh? He said quietly, leaning on the fence. That's the mark of someone with something to prove. Callie wiped her cheeks, embarrassed. It's not working. Brooks studied her, eyes wise and kind. You know, the range is for practice. But in the field, it's never the same. Fear, noise, sweat. Nothing textbook about it. He nodded at her rifle. You're aiming with your hands, not your gut. You want to hit the target, trust yourself. Even when no one else does. She looked at him, searching for sarcasm, but found none. Just understanding. You keep showing up, Brooks said. That counts for something. He straightened, heading back to the armory. Just remember, the ones who struggle the most often have the most to give. Don't let these kids or that sergeant tell you otherwise. She watched him go, the night closing in around her, his words settling in her chest like embers. Alone again, Callie loaded one last round, steadying her breath. She sighted down the barrel. Not thinking, just feeling, remembering why she was here, what she'd promised. The shot cracked through the night. Still missed, but for the first time the failure didn't feel like the end. She stayed at the range until her hands were numb, practicing in the silence, chasing the day she'd finally prove them all wrong. By week's end, the platoon's patience with Callie Mason had worn thin. Every day seemed to begin with a round of quiet bets. Would she miss every shot again? Would she finally get kicked out? Even her presence felt like a burden to the unit, and the tension was building towards something sharp and inevitable. On Friday night, as the storm rolled in, the squad assembled for a dreaded night exercise. The air was heavy, shot through with static, the darkness broken only by the glow of floodlights and the far-off shimmer of lightning. Tonight's drill was supposed to test teamwork under pressure. Capture the flag, but with live rounds, simulated mortar blasts, and unrelenting mud. Callie double-checked her gear, steeling herself against the looks, impatience from some, disgust from others. Roth called out assignments, saving her name for last, as if it left a bitter taste in his mouth. You're with Red Team, he said, but don't slow them down. We can't afford mistakes. She nodded, saying nothing. As the drill began, chaos exploded around them. Whistles, shouts, thunder, the bark of rifles. Her heart hammered as she moved through the dark, senses on edge, boots sinking deep into the muck. Every few steps, she could hear her name. Mason, keep up! Or a muttered curse from Ramirez as he wiped rain from his eyes. Halfway to the objective, the team was pinned down behind a broken wall, enemy fire whizzing overhead. Their objective was just meters away, but the enemy, other soldiers with paint rounds, had them zeroed in. Ramirez peeked over the rubble. We need cover fire. Who's up? No one answered. He turned, scowling. Mason, it's you. Take out the left flank. She swallowed, glancing at the painted targets in the distance, half shrouded in fog and rain. The squad watched her, silent and skeptical. Ramirez shoved the rifle toward her. Go on, Annie Oakley. Prove you're not just here for decoration. The sting was immediate, but she forced herself forward. She dropped to a knee, sighted down the barrel, ignoring the rain blurring her vision. The world shrank to her, the rifle, the painted silhouette. She fired. Miss. The paint splattered harmlessly into the mud, well wide of the mark. A groan went up from Ramirez. Are you kidding me? Another shot. Miss. Now the enemy had spotted her. Paintballs zipped overhead, slamming into the wall. One caught her shoulder, exploding in neon orange. She flinched, biting back a cry. Jesus, Mason! Ramirez barked. We needed cover, not target practice. The squad scrambled to finish the exercise without her, the frustration radiating from every teammate like heat. When the drill ended, flag captured, objective lost, Roth stormed across the field, his face thunderous. What the hell was that? He demanded, voice booming so every eye turned their way. You couldn't hit water if you fell out of a boat. Callie stood her ground, though she felt microscopic under his glare. Rain streamed from her helmet, mixing with the sweat and grime streaking her face. She began, but he cut her off. No excuses. I've seen new recruits shoot better after a night on the town. You want to get someone killed? Because that's where this is headed. The rest of the squad was silent, dripping and exhausted. Some looked away. Others, like Ramirez, just stared at her in open contempt. You're done, Roth spat. You're a liability, Mason. Turn in your gear. You're off the team. Command will process your release in the morning. He turned away, barking new orders. The rest of Red Team trudged off, leaving her alone in the pouring rain. The humiliation hollowed her out, raw and exposed. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run. Instead, she trudged back to the barracks, each step heavier than the last. In the locker room, the silence was worse than any insult. Ramirez stormed past without a word. Lopez shot her a glance full of both anger and pity. Callie sat on the bench, her hands shaking, water running off her sleeves. She pressed her fists to her eyes, trying to stifle the tears, but they came anyway, hot, helpless, never-ending. She barely noticed Brooks entering until he sat beside her, silent at first. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. Bad night, he said. She barked a laugh that was closer to a sob. That obvious? He studied her, then handed her a rag. Wipe your eyes. Don't let them see you break. She wiped her face, the gesture mechanical. I can't do it, Brooks, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. No matter how hard I try, I always fail. Roth is right. They all are. I don't belong here. Brooks leaned back, nodding, as if he'd heard this confession before. Everyone hits a wall. Most quit. The ones who don't, those are the ones you remember. Callie looked at him, searching his face for judgment, finding none. I promised my brother I'd do this, she said, voice trembling. I can't quit, but I'm tired of failing. I'm tired of giving them a reason to hate me. Brooks nodded. Then stop fighting them. Fight for you. For what you came here to do. Tomorrow come by the armory. Before dawn. I'll show you something nobody else here will. She hesitated, then nodded. Brooks stood, squeezing her shoulder. Tonight doesn't define you, Mason. Only what you do next. She watched him go, his silhouette swallowed by the gloom. For a long time, she sat alone, the storm fading outside, the echo of Roth's words still in her head. But somewhere beneath the pain, beneath the shame, a stubborn ember of hope flickered. She wasn't done yet. The world was still dark when Callie Mason reported to the armory, the last shreds of night clinging to the sky. Brooks was already there, unlocking the door, whistling an old tune. The place smelled like gun oil and coffee, warm, alive, a world away from the cold emptiness that haunted her bunk. Brooks greeted her with a nod, sliding a battered rifle case across the table. Let's try something different, he said, eyes twinkling beneath wiry brows. Most folks think shooting's about the eyes. It's not. It's about the gut. Trust in the shot before you take it. Don't let the world tell you what you can't do. Callie swallowed, shoulders squared. She opened the case, finding an old bolt-action rifle inside, heavy, imperfect, scarred by years of use. Brooks smiled, as if sharing a secret. "Start slow," he instructed. "Feel every breath. Sight the target, then let it go. Don't force the shot." They spent the next hours in silence, punctuated only by Brooks' quiet murmurs of encouragement. He didn't care about her score, didn't sigh at her misses. He made her close her eyes, feel the weapon's balance, the weight in her hands. "Shooting's a dance, not a duel," he told her. "If you make it a fight, you'll always lose." For the first time in weeks, Callie relaxed. She focused on the rhythm. Inhale, exhale, squeeze, letting instinct guide her rather than fear. The shots weren't perfect, but something was changing. She wasn't paralyzed by every mistake. Each round, she found a little more control, a little less doubt. After sunrise, as the others drifted in for breakfast, Brooks gave her a firm nod. "You're not fixed, Mason. You're not broken either. You're just learning how to stand in the storm." She thanked him, feeling lighter than she had since the day she arrived. As she left the armory, she caught Roth watching her through the mess hall window, his expression unreadable. The morning moved fast, PT, formation, more drills. For once, the barbs from her peers slid off her like water. She was still on the outside, still doubted, but the despair didn't consume her. She focused on each task, letting Brooks' words echo in her mind. That afternoon, the base hummed with routine. Then everything changed. Sirens screamed across the compound, a shrill, alien wail that turned every head. Soldiers dropped their trays and scrambled for gear. A voice crackled over the loudspeakers. "Security breach. Perimeter breach on the east wall. Assume hostile incursion." Roth sprinted in, voice hoarse from shouting. "Everyone to stations. Now!" Chaos erupted. Boots pounded on concrete, weapons loaded in trembling hands. Callie felt the old panic rising, but she shoved it down. There was no time to think. She grabbed her rifle, falling in with the others. Out on the field, smoke drifted in from the east, mixing with the bitter stench of cordite. Someone had detonated an explosive near the gate. The squad took positions behind a stack of sandbags. Roth barked orders, face streaked with sweat and dirt. "Red team, cover the west flank. Ramirez, Lopez, take point. Mason." He paused as if reconsidering, but there was no one else. "You're with me. Stay sharp." They moved fast, nerves buzzing, hearts pounding. Gunfire crackled from beyond the fence. Callie hugged the ground, every muscle taut. A sudden scream. Then she saw Lopez, pinned down behind a barrel, bleeding from a gash on her arm. Enemy fire tore up the earth around her. "Ramirez, flank right," Roth yelled. "Mason, cover her. Take out that shooter." The world shrank. Callie could see the enemy. A figure in camo, half shrouded by smoke, rifle aimed at Lopez. Her teammates needed her. This was no drill, no paintballs, no laughter. This was life or death. For a split second, fear froze her. Memories of every missed shot, every humiliation, every time she'd let them down. Then, deep inside, something clicked. Brooks' voice echoed. "Trust in the shot before you take it. Don't let the world tell you what you can't do." She dropped to one knee, lining up her sights. The rifle felt different now, an extension of herself, not an enemy in her hands. Inhale, exhale, let go. She squeezed the trigger. The crack of her shot seemed to split the chaos. The figure behind the smoke jerked back and disappeared. "Hit!" Ramirez yelled. Disbelief and relief mingled in his voice. But there was no time to celebrate. More enemy soldiers crept through the breach. Callie fired again, hitting another silhouette, then another, her movements smooth, instinctive. Each shot found its mark. The squad rallied around her. Roth barked new orders, but now his tone held something new. Respect. Together, they pushed back the attackers, securing the line. The firefight ended as abruptly as it began. Smoke clearing, shouts fading to exhausted silence. Lopez limped over, clutching her wound but grinning. "Nice shooting, Mason," she panted, awe flickering in her eyes. You saved my ass. Callie nodded, shaking, tears pricking her eyes. This time not from shame, but from the dizzying rush of relief. Roth approached, helmet tucked under his arm. He searched her face, then offered a grim, approving nod. You did good, Private. Damn good. For the first time, the squad looked at her not as a burden, but as one of their own. The adrenaline faded, replaced by exhaustion and something sweeter. A quiet pride she'd never felt before. The battle had changed everything. In the crucible of real danger, Callie had found the part of herself she'd been searching for all along. The girl who missed every shot in training had disappeared in the smoke. What remained was a soldier. The morning after the attack dawned clear and gold, sunlight pouring over the battered compound, glinting off spent brass and bloodied bandages. The worst of the smoke had drifted away. Medics checked on the wounded. Engineers patched the fence, welding new steel over the jagged breach. The entire base buzzed with a strange, cautious energy, tired, but alive. Callie Mason lay in her bunk, staring up at the peeling ceiling, hardly daring to breathe. The events of the night replayed in her mind. The chaos, the terror, the impossible calm that had taken over when she finally trusted herself. The shots she'd taken, each one had landed. No one could ever take that away. Her hands trembled as she dressed. She glanced at herself in the cracked mirror above her locker. Eyes rimmed with exhaustion, hair tangled, but something was different. Her chin was higher. There was steel in her gaze. The barracks felt changed, too. When she stepped out, silence fell over the mess hall. But it wasn't the cold, dismissive hush of before. Now heads turned with curiosity, with respect. Ramirez caught her eye, hesitated, then nodded, the barest ghost of a smile flickering across his lips. Even Lopez, arm in a sling, grinned openly. Don't think you're done teaching us, sharpshooter, she said, voice warm. Roth strode in, the room straightening at his presence. For a heartbeat, Callie braced for the old sneer, the cutting remark, but he surprised her. He stopped at her table, every eye in the hall tracking his movements. Private Mason, he said, voice gravelly but not unkind. Last night you held your ground. You protected your team. You proved yourself. He paused, letting the words settle over the room like a benediction. We're lucky to have you. That's all. A round of applause started. Awkward at first, then growing, filling the hall with the sound of her acceptance. Callie blinked back tears, offering a quiet smile. It was more than she'd ever hoped for. As the day wore on, life returned to a new normal. The squad treated her differently. Invitations to join them for meals, inside jokes she was now part of. The careful trust that soldiers share after surviving hell together. Ramirez clapped her on the shoulder during drills. Lopez asked her advice on improving her own shot. Even Roth's critiques grew constructive, almost proud. But perhaps the greatest change was inside Callie herself. She no longer flinched at the firing line. The old anxiety lingered, ghostly, but powerless. She found herself stepping forward during drills, volunteering for challenges, her voice steady and sure. One afternoon, Brooks found her at the range, the battered old rifle resting on the bench beside her. She was coaching 2 new recruits, her tone patient and encouraging. You found your footing, Brooks said, watching her with a proud gleam. Callie smiled, lowering her rifle. You showed me how to stop fighting myself. He shrugged, feigning indifference. I just reminded you what you already knew. She looked at the new recruits, remembering her first days, the sting of humiliation, the crushing sense of not belonging. It's strange, she admitted. I thought hitting the target would fix everything. But it's not the shot that matters. It's what you do after you miss. Brooks nodded. We all miss, kid. Even the best. What counts is staying in the fight. That evening, the squad gathered at the fire pit, an unofficial tradition after a long week. Callie sat beside Lopez and Ramirez, laughter mingling with the scent of burning wood. Someone handed her a tin mug of coffee, steaming and strong. Lopez lifted her mug in a toast. To Private Mason, the best shot in the platoon, whether she believes it or not. A chorus of cheers followed, genuine and loud. Callie shook her head, grinning. I'm not the best, she said. Just the most stubborn. The laughter that followed was warm, the sound of belonging. Later, as the fire died down and stars bloomed overhead, Callie walked the perimeter alone, the air cool and quiet. She stopped at the edge of the range, staring at the battered targets, the muddy earth. She let herself remember her brother, his voice, his faith in her. You got this, Cal. Prove them wrong. She smiled, tears stinging her eyes. Not from shame, but from gratitude. She hadn't done this for them, not really. She'd done it to honor a promise, and to prove something to herself. The woman who'd missed every shot in training was still a part of her. A reminder of how far she'd come, and how far she could still go. As the first hints of dawn colored the horizon, Callie squared her shoulders, breathing in the new day. There would be more battles ahead, more doubts, more chances to fail, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready, and when the shots really counted, she would never miss again.